Welcome back, tribe. I want to tell you about something that happened in the 1990s that nobody talks about anymore.
A jaw-dropping claim that rich foreigners paid to shoot humans in Sarajevo in the 1990s, when the city was in the middle of a violent and chaotic military blockade, has sparked an investigation by Italian prosecutors. The stunning allegations come from an Italian writer who alleged he had uncovered evidence that wealthy gun enthusiasts, dubbed sniper tourists, would pay Bosnian Serb forces for the chance to gun down residents at random during the 4-year siege of the city, The Guardian reported. Rich foreigners allegedly paid upwards of $90,000 to shoot people during human safari trips to Sarajevo in the 1990s, with an extra fee to kill children. There were Germans, French, English, people from all Western countries who paid large sums of money to be taken there to shoot civilians, said Ezio Gavazzani, the investigative writer. There were no political or religious motivations. They were rich people who went there for fun and personal satisfaction. We are talking about people who love guns, who perhaps go to shooting ranges or on safari in Africa, he said. Gavazzani claims he first read reports of the alleged tourist-led shootings in Italian media outlets in the 90s, but started digging deeper after watching a 2022 documentary about a former Serb soldier who claimed foreigners would shoot at residents from the hills in Sarajevo. He claims a key source was a former Bosnian intelligence officer. His shocking allegations have now led to a newly launched probe being led by prosecutors in Milan. The investigation is seeking to identify any Italians involved in the so-called sniper tourism. Gavazzani said he had already uncovered the identities of some of the Italians allegedly involved in the massacre, and they are expected to be questioned by prosecutors in the coming weeks.
And maybe there's a reason nobody talks about it. Because once you hear this story, once you really sit with what happened, it changes how you see everything that came after. So Sarajevo in 1992 to 1995, the siege, it lasted a little over 1,400 days, the longest siege in a capital city in modern history. You probably remember the images if you're old enough, emaciated people, bombed out buildings, that kind of thing. The story that we were told was simple. Serbs bad, Muslims victims. America needs to intervene. But there's something else that was happening, something they didn't show us on CNN. Wealthy Europeans were paying money to shoot civilians, not soldiers, civilians. People walking to get bread, mothers with children, women crossing the street for food for her family, and rich guys from Italy, from Britain, allegedly from Israel too. They were all paying between $70,000 and $90,000 to put them in their crosshairs and pull the trigger. They paid more for children, premium pricing for child targets. What kind of human being writes invoices like that? What kind of person receives it, reads the price breakdown, and says, yes, I'll take the child package, please? They called the main road through Sarajevo Sniper's Alley. There were signs literally written all over in Cyrillic. It's Pazi Sniper, watch out sniper. People had to sprint across intersections, time their movements between cracks of gunfire, because up in the hills, in the Serb-controlled areas, there were people with scoped rifles waiting, from professional killers, and next to them, paying customers, tourists with disposable incomes and dead souls. 225 people died on that road alone. 60 of them were children. In November of 2025, Milan prosecutors revived their investigation into the Italian nationals who participated in these hunts. The documentary evidence is there, the financial transactions, the wire transfers for weekend packages, 90,000 euros to a Bosnian Serb paramilitary group. In exchange, you got a rifle, a scope, and a guide who points out targets for you, and plausible deniability because you're not technically a soldier, you're just a concerned European helping the Serb cause. Imagine being a mother in Sarajevo. Your daughter, 8 years old, needs to cross the street to get to the neighbor's house because they're still running water there. So you time it, you wait for a lull in the shelling, she starts to run. You hear the crack of a sniper rifle, and your child crumbles onto the street. And you look up at the hills, barely able to see a small figurine or two. One's in military fatigues, one is in civilian clothes, an expensive jacket, like he's on a golf outing. And you realize that somebody paid money to do that. Woke up that morning in a hotel, had some breakfast, some coffee, drove up to the hills and decided that today I'm going to shoot somebody's child. The weapons that those snipers were using? Israeli Galil rifles, Uzi submachine guns, not black market stuff, official Israeli government exports to Bosnian Serb forces during a UN embargo. The same embargo that left Bosniak Muslims nearly defenseless while Serb artillery rained down on them for 4 years straight. $20 million. That's the estimated value. We don't have confirmation, but that's what was estimated to be funneled through Cyprus, through Greek intermediaries, through all these shadowy networks that were designed to bypass the UN arms embargo. Small arms ammunition, surveillance equipment, Israeli military advisors reportedly trained the Serb paramilitary units. They're called the Scorpion Group, and they participated in Srebrenica. And the American taxpayers? We were sending Israel $3.8 billion a year, still are, by the way. So we paid for the weapons that enabled a siege where wealthy sickos could go on and hunt civilians for sport. It's like the Hunger Games, but real life. Then our politicians, use that siege as justification to drag us into the Balkans. $15 billion in operations. Dead American soldiers. For what? In 2016, the Israeli citizens, they try to get their government to release details of these arms shipments. Attorney Italy Mack and Professor Yair Aron, they filed a Freedom of Information petition. Just tell us what happened. Tell us who approved of this. And the Israeli Supreme Court said no. Why, you may ask? That sounds insane. Potential to damage foreign relations. Think about that for a second. Covering up evidence of arming a genocide to protect diplomatic relationships. What diplomatic relationships are worth that? What alliance is so important that you'll bury evidence of mass murder to preserve it? So Professor Aron, a Holocaust scholar, said something that sticks with you, that sticks with anybody that reads about this. We betrayed the legacy of the Holocaust. And he's right. The state founded on never again was arming people, running human safaris, you guys. And when citizens asked for accountability, the court said no. State secrets. National security, diplomatic considerations above all. So in May 1993, a tragic story in Vrbanja, this is a bridge, a couple tried to cross, right? Such a sad story. Her name was Admira Izmic. She was a Bosniak, and his name was Boško Birkić, if I'm pronouncing this correctly. And he was a Serb. They were in love. They'd been together since high school, and when the war started, their city descended into ethnic madness, but they stayed together. They decided to leave one day, escape to somewhere that wasn't Sarajevo, so they walked out holding hands. Both of them knew the risks. Both of them decided love was worth it. A sniper shot both of them. They fell in the middle of the bridge, still holding hands. The story goes like this. As they were coming up on the bridge, he was shot first. This is a story told by Bosnians. He fell down. She fell down, trying to console him, weeping, seeing him bleeding out. She was shot next. Of course, she then falls down, and in her final breaths, as she's taking the last one, her hand reaches out, barely grabbing onto his. Her final act. Their bodies lay there for days. Nobody could retrieve them. Too exposed, the snipers would shoot anyone who tried. So Admira and Boško decomposed in the open, hands still clasped, while the siege ground on. That image, two kids who refused to hate each other, killed for trying to escape. That's what Israeli weapons enabled, and weapons from all over the place. Shot down with hardware that we subsidize, by paramilitaries trained with techniques refined in the West Bank and Gaza, turned loose on a European city to test tactics that would be deployed again later in the future. because that's what this was, a laboratory. Bosnia was where they refined the siege tactics, where they learned how to cut off food, water, electricity to a civilian population, where they figured out psychological warfare of random shelling. Hit a marketplace one day, a hospital the next. Keep everybody terrified. Keep them running. And when they run, shoot them. Where's that currently happening today? So in July 95, Srebrenica, a UN-designated safe zone that Dutch peacekeepers, were supposed to protect. Well, unfortunately, 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were rounded up over a few days, marched into fields and warehouses, and mass executed. Those mass graves filled with bodies and hands still bound behind their backs. Some of the executions were carried out with those Galil rifles, Israeli-designed, Israeli-manufactured, supplied to Ratko Mladic forces with full knowledge that what they were doing. This wasn't some intelligence failure. This wasn't, oops, I'm sorry, we didn't know what was going on. How did our weapons ever get there? The siege had been going on for 3 years at this point. Everybody knew what was happening. And while this was happening, American politicians were demanding to intervene. John McCain was on TV every other day. Elliot Abrams, fresh from essentially covering up massacres in Central America, was pushing for NATO action. Humanitarian intervention is what it's always called, yeah? So in 1995, we bombed Belgrade for 78 days. We targeted bridges, power plants, water treatment facilities. We even used depleted uranium munitions that poisoned the soil, caused a spike in birth defects, cancer rates exploded, all to stop the genocide, they said. But nobody mentioned where the Serbs got their weapons. Nobody asked why Israel was arming the people we were bombing. Nobody connected those dots that American aid to Israel funded the very atrocities that we were supposedly avenging. McCain thundered about the Serb brutality on the Senate floor. He got standing ovations. He positioned himself as a moral voice on human rights. And the whole time, the weapons killing those civilians came from a country we give more aid to than anybody else. He never mentioned that part. Neither did any of them. The veterans who deployed to Bosnia figured it out, though. Not right away, but eventually. One wrote about finding shell casings in Srebrenica, Israeli manufacturer's markings clear as day. He collected some, he brought them home, kept them in a box in a garage for years because he didn't know what to do with the knowledge. What do you do when you realize your service was part of a shell game? That you were sent to clean up atrocities committed with weapons your own tax dollars funded? That the people calling it a humanitarian mission were the same people who enabled all the killing? And here's where it gets really dark. In 2024, Serbia sold $42 million worth of arms to Israel, drones, munitions, artillery systems for use in Gaza. And so the circle closes. We armed Israel. Israel armed Serbia during their genocide. We bombed Serbia for that genocide. Now Serbia arms Israel, and we still fund all of it. The tactics refined in Sarajevo, they're being used in Gaza right now. Siege warfare. Cut off water, food, electricity, bomb civilian infrastructure. When people try to flee or find food, shoot them. Call it self-defense. And if anyone criticizes it, call them bigots or anti-Semites. The difference in scale is all that you'll see today, and the technology. In Sarajevo, you needed a sniper and a spotter. In Gaza, you have drones with AI targeting and missiles. But the basic principles is the same. Turn civilian areas into free fire zones and make survival a crime. The human safari details what breaks through all of the propaganda, because you can spin a lot of things. You can say geopolitics is complicated, strategic interests require difficult choices, but you can't spin wealthy tourists essentially paying to hunt children for entertainment. There's no complexity there. It's just what it is. It's like a movie coming into real life. It's the most horrendous thing you could possibly think. Pure evil, enabled by our government, funded by our taxes, covered up by our allies. So the investigation continues, and maybe some 80-year-old Italian businessman will serve time for shooting a Bosnian child in 1993. Maybe they'll extradite a few of the safari participants, but the architects, the ones who made it possible, the John McCains, the Elliot Abrams, they're still writing op-eds about American leadership, still advising politicians, still treated as a serious foreign policy voice. These kinds of neocons, they still exist. They never left. The system that enabled Sarajevo is stronger now than it ever was back then. The lobby is more entrenched. The aid flows automatically, no questions asked. And anyone who asks those questions gets smeared as an anti-Semite or an isolationist or a bigot or a million other names. Like those are slurs instead of just descriptions of people who think America should come first. That's the choice in front of us. Keep funding this, keep arming countries that turn our weapons on civilians, keep sending our soldiers to clean up messes that we helped create, keep pretending that it's about humanitarian values when it's really about money and lobby influence and strategic relationships that benefit everybody except Americans. Or we walk away. We can secure our borders. We can fix our infrastructure, take care of our people. Let them solve their own problems with their own resources. The people of Sarajevo survived. They rebuilt, they remembered, they created memorials and art and video games. One of them is called The War of Mine, to show what siege warfare actually feels like. Not glorious, it's not heroic, it's just people trying not to die when someone with a scoped rifle and too much money hunts them for sport. That's what our foreign policy produces when we let other countries' interests drive our decisions. Dead lovers on bridges. Dead children in a place called Sniper Alley. Mass graves in Bosnia and other parts of the world. And 30 years later, the same system is running the same playbook in Gaza. The lesson isn't that we shouldn't have intervened or we should have intervened harder. The lesson is that we shouldn't have been there at all. Our involvement made it worse, enabled the killers, cost us money and lives for nothing. And if we don't learn that lesson, if we keep playing this game, our kids will have this same conversation in 30 years, looking back at Gaza or Ukraine or whatever comes next in the next 10 years, 20 years, wondering how we let it happen again, wondering why we didn't learn. The couple on Vrbanja Bridge, they chose love over hate, and they died for it. Shot down with American subsidized weapons. Their bodies rotted there in the street for days. How many more before we collectively wake up and say, enough is enough? And I hopefully believe that the 2028 elections will tell us if Americans finally had enough. Anyways, appreciate you guys for tuning in. It takes a while to get these episodes ready. A lot of research is needed to be done, a lot of checking some of the facts, a lot of finding out things that are quite frankly very disturbing. I hope you do enjoy these types of episodes. If you do, let me know. I like making these. They're very interesting. You learn a lot. As usual, appreciate everybody that tunes in. Appreciate everybody that's been getting gear. Everybody in the private community. Glad to have you guys. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.